All right, everybody, welcome. I'm Jordan with East Central Regional Development Commission. It's about 2:30, so we'll get the ball rolling. Just a little note of housekeeping first. Looks like we have a pretty good sized crowd here, pushing 100 people. So if you don't mind, if you would, everybody would mute their lines unless they're giving a presentation or going to be asking questions. That'll kind of help keep the background chatter down and keep everybody sane on the call. That would be most appreciated. So again, I'm Jordan with East Central Regional Development Commission. We serve Chisago, Isanti, Kanabec, Mille Lacs, and Pine counties. So welcome to one and all of our local businesses and bankers and elected officials joining us here today. So we're got a pretty good program coming up here. We're going to visit a little bit with Twyla Kennedy. She's a lead economic development specialist with the Small Business Administration for Minnesota, based out of the Twin Cities. We've got Brad Brzezinski on the line. He's our local DEED, Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development rep for the northern part of our region. And Brad will be talking about some state programs that are out there. Also, Greg Bergman is on the line. Greg is the regional director of the Small Business Development Center that covers most of our region. Can talk a little bit about the programs that are available to assist, what they can do to help at no out-of-pocket charge to our businesses to help connect them in the right position. So I have to admit that I am fairly new at running this software, so we're going to do our very best. Twyla did send over a PowerPoint she wants, so I'm going to do my best, Twyla, but I'm not making any guarantees. So with that, I want to turn over to Twyla Kennedy. Twyla, again, is the lead economic development specialist at the Minnesota office of the federal SBA. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Twyla.
All right, so are you able to share your desktop with those slides, Jordan?
I do believe. So give me a second. All right. We're pulling that up right now.
So while Jordan's doing that, I want to say just thank you to everybody that is taking time out today to dial in and you know, not only hear what I have to say, but actually it's been really nice. I've been on a few of these calls. I've gotten to hear what the state has going on. And of course, we like Greg Bergman in Brainerd, so we're always happy to hear from Greg. So, you know, I know that this is kind of an unprecedented time for us over at the SBA district office. So we are doing our best to get information out to all of you on the programs that we have, and then just some other advice that we have around trying to get information and for everybody to stay connected. So awesome. All right, so Jordan, I'll just say next slide when I want you to move on, if that's okay. All right, and I'm going to turn off my video because I'm going to be looking off to the side, so it's going to be funky. All right, there we go. All right, go ahead and head to the next slide. So this doesn't come as a surprise to anybody, but our nation's small businesses are facing an unprecedented economic disruption due to the coronavirus. So on Friday, March 27th, we got the CARES Act signed into law, and we're now working on trying to stand up some loan programs that are going to help the small business owners. Couple of things to let anybody here on the call that may not know. You are eligible to have multiple SBA loans, but each business can only have one PPP or Payment Protection Program loan and one EIDL loan. So that means that you might have a 7A and a 504. You might have a previous disaster loan, because we have had a few of those happen. But you can only have one PPP loan for this disaster and one EIDL loan for this disaster to go along with all the rest of those loans. To be eligible for any of our loan programs, you do have to have a Social Security number and a Social Security number or an EIN. And just as a piece of note, I would say make sure as you're filling out all of this documentation that you are as complete and accurate as you can be. You know, as you can imagine, we've got millions of applications coming into all these programs. So we want to make sure that you can get service as quickly as possible. So the fewer times somebody has to come back and get more information, the better off everybody is. So the next slide.
Guess it can't work at the same time.
All right, so the first program I'm going to cover is the Paycheck Protection Program. That seems to be the one that everybody has the most questions about at this point in time. So as you can see, the eligibility is pretty much any business under 500, any nonprofits that are running as 501c3s, and that does include faith-based organizations. Veterans organizations, we are fielding some calls from VFWs inquiring about the program, tribal concerns, and then as of Friday, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals will be eligible to apply. For this program, agricultural businesses are eligible. Now, the purpose of the program is to, for the most part, is to pay rent. But in addition to that, you can use it on a small basis to get interest on mortgage, rent, and utilities covered. To take advantage of the fact that this loan can be forgiven, you do need to have at least 75% of the loan spent on covering payroll expenses. So what this loan is set up to cover is 8 weeks of that payroll, interest, rent, and utilities. And just keep in mind that payroll is going to consist of salary, wages, cash tips. It's also going to include benefits that you're paying, such as vacation and sick leave or health care benefits. So the forgiveness on this loan is going to be based on the employer either maintaining or quickly rehiring the employees and then maintaining the salary levels for those employees. Just keep in mind that if you're not able to do that, it will cause a slight reduction in the forgiveness amount. And you can also have an EIDL loan in addition to this, and I have an example in a little bit whereby I'll walk through what happens if you have a PPP loan and an EIDL loan that are both being used to pay for payroll expenses. So next slide. All right, so let's put it this way, for the part of the loan that doesn't end up getting forgiven, there's a 2-year term with a 1% interest rate, and the loan payments will be deferred for 6 months, during which time, of course, interest will be accruing. And that's going to be for the portion that is potentially not forgiven. So we get a lot of questions about documentation. These are just some samples. Obviously, there are millions of businesses out there, and not everybody handles their business record keeping in the same way. But we're going to be looking for the lenders that are working this program, because the thing to keep in mind about this program is that we are utilizing SBA approved lenders. So anybody that was a 7A lender and then some that we've brought on board since that point in time are approved to do this. They are the ones that are going to be reviewing the documentation. They have to be comfortable with that what they are seeing constitutes payroll. So this could be something like payroll records or tax filings. For independent contractors, it would be a 1099. And then for sole proprietors, it would be income and expense information. So keep in mind that unlike our regular guaranteed programs, we are not requiring collateral or personal guarantees, and the borrower will not be paying any fees. The lender will get paid a fee, but the SBA is covering that amount. So there is a link on this page to those lenders who are approved to do the payment protection program. I always suggest that a business owner start with a lender that they have a relationship with, and that doesn't make any difference if we're dealing in this disaster or if I'm talking to you about going out and getting a regular 7A or a 504 loan. I always suggest that you start with somebody you have a relationship with. I do understand that some of the lenders are starting to see themselves hitting some capacity limitations, whether that's lending limits or just they've gotten too many loans for them to process. So just keep in mind, you are always welcome to contact any lender that is on this list that's participating in the program. I also suggest that business owners take a look at the sample documentations on the Paycheck Protection Program website, just so that you can see what information and what kind of documentation you potentially would need to have for the lender to fill out the form. The 2483 is the borrower form. The 2484 is the form that the lender would be filling out. And what you're going to notice on those forms is, by and large, what you as a borrower is doing or are doing is certifying to a lot of this information. So the lender has to be comfortable that the borrower is certifying. Keep in mind, though, that even though we've got the form, the lender's going to be doing this through an electronic portal. And this particular loan program, before I go on, it has a deadline of June 30th of 2020. So next slide. All right, so this is a sample. This is an example. I'm going to walk you through the best I can. So this particular example is talking about an employer who has employees that make more than $100,000. So the thing about the Paycheck Protection Program is that you are limited to $100,000 of cash wages. So that $100,000 doesn't include the benefits that you're paying. It only speaks to what you're paying in wages to that employee. There's also an assumption on here that you've received a $10,000 EIDL loan. So this employer has annual payroll of $1.5 million. So one of the things that they're going to be doing is subtracting out, again, just the cash wage portion of the compensation. They can still leave in their contributions to defined benefit plans, to the group health coverage, to any other benefits that they've been paying, as well as state and local taxes that are assessed. So it would be the $100,000 of wages plus any of the benefits. So what you're going to do then is you're going to back out the extra, and you're going to come up with, in this particular example, we're keeping it easy, it's at $1.2 million. So on an average, that's $100,000 a month of payroll. You're going to multiply that by 2.5. So we figure that 2.5 equals 8 weeks of a month. So you multiply it times 2.5, you add that $10,000 EIDL loan back in, so that gives you a maximum loan amount of $260,000. That's the amount that you're going to be looking at trying to cover or continue to maintain through the 8 weeks once you get the loan. And you have to be able to show that you have either brought back your employees, or that you're paying them and you're maintaining a stable head count and payroll expense. So as of right now, we do get a couple of questions. The guidelines for the lenders have not come out yet, so we don't know at the end what kind of documentation you're going to be required to provide. I would say my suggestion always is to just maintain any documentation that you have, so that at the point in time when you're asking for the forgiveness, you'll have what you need to show that you maintained your payroll in the manner that you needed to. So next slide. So I'm going to quickly cover the other programs. The EIDL Advance has been in place for a while. That program is a direct disaster loan. So that is coming out of a portal that the SBA has set up. And it's an advance on the economic injury disaster loan. It's an amount of up to $10,000. There was an ambitious goal of trying to get the money out in 3 to 5 days. We were not quite able to hit that time frame, but my understanding is that the money has started getting out to some of the small business owners. So we should see and hear from more and more business owners that are getting not only their EIDL Advance, but potentially their EIDL loan hopefully in the coming days and the week. The advance is forgivable, so there's no requirement to repay that, and that's even if you get denied a disaster loan. And So anybody that's on the call that happened to have applied for an EIDL loan prior to March 30th would need to apply to get access to the advance. So for those of you that have been around and have been answering some questions, you may be aware that we had 2 prior portals that we were trying to work with to accept applications, and they just got overwhelmed and they crashed. So the current one is kind of EIDL loan 3.0, and it has been maintaining well. So it's been working pretty well for us. Loan proceeds here can be used to pay for payroll costs, salaries, rent, or mortgage payments. Really, we're looking at the expenses that you would have to keep your business doors open. So if you've got some pre-existing debt, if you were paying on some, maybe some equipment that you had purchased and you have your monthly payments there, you've got some accounts payable, those are the sorts of things that you would use for the EIDL. Next slide. So this loan program as well is for small businesses with less than 500 employees. If they have more than 500, but they meet the SBA size standards based on the link to the size standard table below, they're also eligible. Churches as well, not faith-based nonprofits, other nonprofit organizations. The group is a little bit wider than the PPP, so those who filed 501c, D, or E on their federal tax returns would be eligible for this. This particular loan is not open to agricultural enterprises, though. Next slide. And so this slide just shows, you can see the link to where you would go to apply. I know when you get to that page, it says that it takes about 2 hours. It takes probably about 20 minutes to fill the information out. For the most part, it's not too complicated. The first set of screens here is going to ask you to identify what kind of entity you feel you most closely relate to. And then the next pages, you're going to have some business information, some personal information. The page that says additional information is going to be asking you some character questions in addition to asking you to provide your bank routing information so that they can do direct deposits of the disbursements. Next slide. And so at the bottom of that first screen, these 7 questions speak to eligibility. So if you are not able to check these boxes, but you think that you should be eligible, you can try contacting our customer service number. Their phone number and email address are below. In the district office, I will tell you, we do not have access to the disaster loan database. So we can't check the status of any of the applications that have gone in, as well as we're not making the credit or the eligibility decisions. You know, I can speak on a kind of a high level about what I see, but when it comes down to it, the people in the disaster center are the ones making those decisions. So if you have questions, probably the best way to get an answer is going to be to contact them. Next slide. So we do have a program called Express Bridge Loan, and the idea behind this program is that there are 175 express lenders, and if you check that first link on bullet point 2 there, you can find out who the express lenders are. To participate in this program and be eligible, you do have to be a current business client of one of those lenders that does express loans. And the idea is that it's a bridge. So if you get an economic injury disaster loan, then you would use that to pay back the bridge loan. These loans are for up to $25,000 and for up to 7 years. Basically, they follow the same rules that our Express Loan Program covers. So if you don't get the Express Bridge Loan and you needed to cover this for the full 7-year term, you'd be looking at an interest rate of prime plus 6, and we do have guarantee fees on that. They're not requiring collateral, but they do require a personal guarantee. And next slide. So the last program that we have available is the SBA Debt Relief Program. This program and the SBA, obviously Express Loan Program, are utilizing many of the same lenders that the payment protection program cover. And these would be for anybody who has a current 504-7A or a microloan. What the SBA is doing is they are actually covering your payment, interest, and fee portion of that monthly payment for the next 6 months. So this is not a 6-month deferral. This is actually the SBA coming in and covering the payments on those current loans. In addition, this program also covers if you get a new 7A, 504, or microloan between March 27th and September 26th, SBA would also be covering the payments on those loans. And again, it's not a deferral, it's your loan payment being paid by somebody else. So as far as the size of the loan, interest rate, and the terms in that, each one of those programs is a little different. So 504 is by and large going to be real estate, build outs or new buildings. 7A can also cover real estate, but it also would cover things like working capital, purchases of equipment, and some of those other day-to-day expenses. And then the microloans cover working capital as well, they have a limit on size of up to $50,000, and the microloan borrowers cover specific areas. So if you were interested in a microloan, you would want to check our resource guide listed at the bottom there and find out which microlender covers your particular area of the state. And again, because those are part of our regular guaranteed programs, you would be contacting either your lender directly, or if you don't have a lender that participates in one of those programs, you can check our list of lenders and contact a different lender. Next slide. So because these are regular SBA programs, there is a personal guarantee that's always required. And again, it's covering principal, interest, and the fees. There's the link to the list of lenders that participate in those programs. It will also include the certified development companies that do the 504 lending, as well as the microlenders who do the microloans. And each one of these programs, I tried to include a link directly to the website, the page on our website that goes into a little more detail on those. So if you want to flip to the next slide, I'll cover the rest of these real quickly. So we have SBA resource partners. We had SBA resource partners for a long time, and I know Greg Bergman's going to be speaking. He happens to be one of our SBDC regional directors. We have 9 centers around the state. So if you don't happen to be in Greg's area, we have SBDC centers that will cover pretty much everybody out there. We have some SCORE chapters around the state as well. The SCORE mentors are able to assist you with this process, and we have 3 women's business centers. Women Venture is locally in the Twin Cities area, but Women's Business Alliance Central is located in Little Falls, and so I believe that Sandy Voigt over there does cover part of the ECRDC region. And if you happen to be a little farther north, we have the Women's Business Alliance North up in Duluth, and Sandy Larson up there would be the person to contact. And then we have a regional Veterans Business Outreach Center. So anybody that happens to be a veteran, if you connect with the Veterans Business Outreach Center, they will attempt to make sure they're connecting you with any resources that are veteran specific. Next slide. And then since you got somebody on from Minnesota, I'm just going to say the state of Minnesota has been working with us and has been working really hard to stand up some resources. So they have a couple of loan programs that they have available, as well as some other resources on the website. And the next slide. The state of Minnesota also has some health resources available to help you as an employer, direct your employee as far as what they should be thinking about around the coronavirus outbreak. And I'll have you flip to the next slide. Sorry about that. You may be hearing my dog barking. So we do have, unfortunately, there's a lot of money flowing around. So there are a lot of people that would like to get your hands on it in a criminal manner. So our advice to you is if you get something from SBA, if you get something from an SBA employee, it's going to come from sba.gov in the email address. We understand that there are some emails going out with an email address, it's sba.health. That is not SBA. And so you want to be very careful about clicking on any links. In addition, we're not going to ask you to pay to apply for any of these loans. So if you get an email that says that you need to supply a credit card number so that somebody can, you know, have you pay in order to apply for these loans, just know that SBA does not require anybody to pay to apply for the loan. My suggestion, if you have questions on doing the applications, go back to that screen full of SBA resource partners and contact one of them. I know Tom Willis on the line as well, and Nancy Hoffman, and those people are some of our consultants that work in the SBDC arena that do have that ability to provide resources to you. Next slide. And so basically, the thing I want you to pick up off of here is that we are trying to keep everybody up to date on the SBA programs, and we are utilizing our newsletter list. So if you do not get our newsletter, and I know Jordan does a really great job of sharing that information out, and we appreciate that, because the way that we're keeping people current on SBA's programs is to have you sign up for the newsletter at sba.gov/update. And you go out and you put your zip code in. You want to make sure that you get to the screen that asks for your zip code. That will get you the Minnesota District Office newsletter list. And then we have a Twitter account at SBA_Minnesota, and our public affairs specialist is also tweeting out some of those changes as they occur. The two email links on the bottom, Minneapolis MN at SBA.gov, is our local district office, and our staff people are answering the email questions that come in there. The disaster customer service at SBA.gov will handle any of the questions around the EIDL Advance program. And above and beyond that, my suggestion to everybody is to make sure that you are signed up for DEED's website or DEED's newsletter. Make sure that you check and see if your local city or county has a newsletter or a Facebook page that they are sending information out, so that you're staying connected to the resources that are all available to you. Because what I'm finding out is there are a number of cities and counties that are also putting together some types of financing to help as a safety net. So if you want to know what's happening at all levels and be able to apply at all levels, just make sure that you're staying connected. So Jordan, that's what I have, so I will throw it back to you.
All righty then. Thank you so much, Twyla. Can you stick around to ask any questions from folks, Twyla? Is that cool?
That's cool. You have me for however long you want to have me.
Awesome. Any questions for Twyla?
Twyla, can you talk about estimating the money under the PPP for a sole proprietorship? Is it based just on net income or draws?
So my understanding, and Tom, you're probably more of a tax person than I am. I'm going to preface any of the tax questions. I'm not a tax professional. I got a quick little explanation of what some of these schedules are. So my understanding is that with sole proprietors, by and large, they're filing a Schedule C, and that on the Schedule C, there's a line for income. And the way I understand it is that's the amount that is being looked at for the PPP loan. But now and since those guys haven't started applying yet, I haven't seen any real guidance on how to look at it. So that's the only thing that I know, is that my understanding is that they're going to be looking at the income on the Schedule C.
Any other questions for Twyla?
I have a question. Crashing for the SBA
Go ahead.
applications.
Okay, if you can hear me, my question is, being a self-proprietor or with an S-Corp and you're the only employee, I heard that $10,000 loan is $1,000 per employee. Is there any truth to that?
So what I can say is I have not seen anything definite, but I have heard that as well, that with the volume that they had come in, that they were doing $1,000 per employee. And if it was a sole proprietor or somebody that listed they had 0 employees, it was the advanced portion of it was $1,000 per employee. Now, if you went into if you were using the COVID-19 website, you would also have been applying for the loan itself. And that I haven't heard anything on really, but the advance, I did hear that it was $1,000 per employee.
Thank you. Any other questions for Twyla?
Yeah, this is Dwayne Northagen. I've got a question here actually from Dan Weber, and he wanted to know if the EIDL loan program can be utilized to help pay property taxes.
So I don't believe that it can be, at this point, that it can be used for property taxes. I think it's fairly limited. It's what they're really talking about, and the idea behind that particular loan program was to cover like the day-to-day ongoing expenses like the utilities, the rent, the payroll. And so I haven't seen anywhere that it can be used for property taxes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Twyla with the SBA?
I have one. My question is about the employees, and I'm wondering about, we were just in the process of onboarding a temp service, a temp employee, and then all of this hit literally like a week before. And so we paused that. We'd really like to bring them on, but we weren't sure if that type of evaluation hire associate qualifies in that PPP loan.
So are you paying them? So I guess what I would say is this. So as long as you're paying them a wage, so if they're going to be getting a W-2 from you that you're paying a wage, they should be eligible. If it's a 1099 employee, like an independent contractor, that person would be eligible to apply on their own. But because they're being brought on after the 15th, I'm not exactly sure how that works, so that one I'd have to do a little more investigation on. But
technically they'd be an employee actually of the temp service, and we'd be paying a temp service for them.
So there is, and I'm gonna have you send me an email, and I'll send you the reference.
Great.
I don't remember if it was in our final rule. There's a reference to, for instance, if you have like a payroll service, how that would get accounted for. And I think my understanding is that it and sometimes when there's a payroll service, and that's covering your back end stuff, they have to have their EIN, their EIN number on the documentation. So it looks like they're the employer, but they're not really the employer. And so I can send you that reference and see if that follows along with how a temp employee would be handled.
Thank you.
So I will tell you my email address is twila.kennedy@sba.gov. And if you could just make a note that you had inquired about the temp employee, that'll jog my memory.
Thanks.
Awesome. Any other questions for Twyla on SBA programs?
I do. I just have a quick question. So we ended up applying, of course, on the 30th when all of this was back and forth between the new and the old system. And we've reached out to the phone number that was given, talked to them now twice to find out if we needed to do anything. We've been told that it should already be gone through, and then we called again and they're saying they can't figure it out, and then we were told to possibly reapply. I just don't want to make a mess.
So can you tell me, did you apply with the, I'm going back here so I can get the link that was the COVID-19 relief.sba.gov, or were you on the disasterloan.sba.gov? Do you happen to recall?
We were on the disaster loan, the one that you showed today.
The one we showed today? You should be okay. When that system started, so that system came online like late March 29th. So the folks that started applying on the 30th, that particular portal hasn't caused any problems. So you should be okay, because when you applied, not only were we accepting the applications for the EIDL loan, but the advance had also been put in place as well. So you should have an application for both the loan and the advance in there.
And then someone said we should be able to look online and be able to log in and see where it's at, and that wasn't even an option at that point?
No, nope. And that's, so the folks that got in early on the two systems, the first system that we had that was crashing, and the one that we have a system that we use for regular physical disasters, and that's what we tried using for this system. When you log into that one, you have to create a login ID and a password. And so for those people, they had created a login ID and a password, so they have a way to, go back in and look at that. For the folks under the streamlined application process, that wasn't anything that was done. So nobody that comes into this one has a login or a password. So you wouldn't be able to log in directly and look at your application.
Okay, so more just kind of wait and see what happens, and when it comes in, it comes in.
Yes, and I hate to have that be the answer, but as of right now, that's really the answer for the EIDL loan, is just kind of we're in a holding pattern. Some of the funds have started to roll out, so hopefully we'll see more of it coming.
Thank you.
And we'll take one last question. If anybody has anything they'd like to know or to ask Twyla with the SBA.
I have a follow-up question. The $1,000, okay, so I'll only be eligible for $1,000 being a sole proprietor for an S Corp. My follow-up question would be, I haven't done the PPP loan for wages. I am the only wage earner. You were saying, because I'm set up as an S Corp, I take X amount as a wage and the rest is capital gains. Obviously, the wage alone would not cover all my expenses. So you were saying they will go by my full income on my federal tax return?
So what I believe that what you're going to want to look at, and again, so tax is not my area of expertise. My understanding is for an S Corp that you file a Schedule K, and
Yes.
On that, I believe there is a line that talks about owner wages. I think that's how it comes out, or officer wages, or something along those lines. And so my understanding is that is what is going to be looked at. Now, what I would say is it's something that you could talk about. You could ask the bank that you're going to be working with to see if they've got some other guideline that they're looking at. But as far as I know, what they're looking at is that officer wage portion.
Okay.
And as I was just going to say, as an S Corp, you're not considered, even though you're the only person, as an S Corp, you're not a sole proprietor necessarily, or a self-employed individual. So you're actually eligible to apply for the PPP now.
Who is he? Okay, thanks. I'll work with my bank and see what they can do.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Twyla. We'll have a little more Q&A at the tail end, wanting to be respectful of everybody's time. Next on the agenda is Brad Brzezinski. Brad is our regional rep with the state of Minnesota's Department of Employment and Economic Development. Bradley, you want to take it away?
Yes, can you hear me here?
Can hear you. Go ahead and show your video if you'd like to.
My mug isn't exactly the best, and I do have my son working on some school stuff nearby, so if he were to make it into the 4A, I would rather not. But thanks for having us on here. I know people have probably heard a lot from Deed recently, whether it be emails or I know some of you have been on calls in the news, things of that nature, with regards to kind of emergency style programs that have come on just in the past 2 weeks being developed, and we've been turning them around and trying to get them out as quickly as possible. One thing we do stress is that we're working as quickly as we can, and I know a number of our partner lenders throughout Minnesota are also working as quickly as they can with short staffs and trying to process loans as they come in, the loans that we'll be talking about here. So, but if there's any questions about that, we can discuss them at the end or during the Q&A. So one of the first program I'm going to talk about today that we rolled out is called the Small Business Emergency Loan Program, and it was established as a result of Executive Order 20-04 and 20-08, following the announcements on the COVID pandemic. And what this program does is it's a small business loan, and in order for it to be eligible, a business must be able to demonstrate that it was directly affected by the conditions from the emergency declarations of the executive orders. Again, that's 20-04 and 20-08. To qualify, businesses must be current on financial obligations as of March 1 of 2020. They must be an existing small business, whatever form that is. And then there's a number of other things that you can find on our website with regards to being able to demonstrate financial viability, ability to pay off the loan, and ability to seek credit through a bank. So the program, the terms of the loan program range anywhere from $2,500 to $35,000 and are based on the firm's economic injury and the financial need of the company or the firm that we're talking about. This will be an interest-free loan. It can be paid back over 5 years, and the first payment can be deferred 6 months. Partial forgiveness may be available, and it's provided to businesses only located in Minnesota. It's important to note that a business can only apply one business per loan. So a company couldn't go to 3 or 4 different lenders and request the funds. One company or firm has the ability to apply once. So that can be, information on that program can be found on our website, and I'll post that in the chat afterwards I'll post, I guess, a link to our small business guide for recovery, and I'll post some links for the program specifically, but a lot can be found if you go to our website, www.mn.gov/deed, DEED, and you'll be able to find, it's right on the front, you'll be able to find a lot of these programs listed on there. We have an FAQ section as well that when we get questions in, we respond to them and we post them on the website. So a lot of questions that you may have may be right on the program page. So to apply, you don't apply directly to Deed for this program. You apply through one of our certified lenders located throughout Minnesota. Again, we have that on our website. And me being the Northeast regional rep, I have 3 of those lenders in my area. That would be the Initiative Foundation, kind of in the southern portion of my territory, the Northland Foundation, and the Entrepreneur Fund. So I guess I'd want to stop there and maybe see if there's any questions, or should I just keep going, Jordan?
Yeah, any questions for Brad right now on what he's covered? All right, hearing none, Bradley, go right ahead.
Sounds good. Another program that came out is our small business loan guarantee program. And that's also a program that we are funding, but we are working through certified lenders. Again, on our website, you can find the list of firms, kind of some non-traditional lenders or nonprofit lenders, but also banks that have signed up for that. You can go on our website on the program page and find a listing of those who are who have certified with us to provide the loan guarantees through that program. And what that is, the loans can be used for a variety of different, I guess, different cost centers or for different financing purposes. You can use it to purchase machinery, equipment, maintenance, repair, expenses related to working capital, and when the working capital is secured by fixed assets, when that's possible. A maximum of 80% of the loan can be guaranteed for a maximum of $200,000. So there's a small fee, 0.25% on that. But again, this program has been rolled out in back of our small business emergency loan program. So if there's any questions, feel free to reach out on that or check the website, and you can see which banks are enrolled kind of in your area or in your region, and you can check in on that, on the availability of that. So those are the two sort of new programs that we are working with. A program modification that has come back is with regards to our community held Minnesota Investment Fund dollars. Back in, I want to say 2015 or 2016, we opened it up for a year for those dollars held within cities and EDAs to use those dollars for a wider purpose. Those dollars, we've now opened it up again where those dollars can be used on a local level to assist a wider variety of businesses. For example, a retail type business could now be used with those dollars to assist with. And if there's any questions on that, we have a process on our website to get those funds transitioned over to be able to use them. And I'll post that link as well. And I guess lastly, what I want to stress is that we do have, as I mentioned on our deed website, kind of our guide to small business recovery with COVID-19, as well as our information and resources page on there that has information for business, for employees, for unemployment insurance. That's another side of the house that we have with Indeed. I know that they are incredibly swamped as well, but there's some ways to go on and to best access that are highlighted through our website. And I guess that's what I have for right now. If there's any questions, like you said, we can take them at the end.
Any other questions for Mr. Bradley? Hearing none, thanks, Brad. We appreciate your time. And we're going to turn it over to Greg Bergman. Greg is the Regional Director for the Small Business Development Center, based out of Central Lakes College up in Brainerd. But Greg covers pretty much our entire 5-county region: Chisago, Isanti, Kanabec, Mille Lacs, and Pine. And with that, Mr. Bergman.
Thank you, Jordan. As Twyla mentioned, we're one of the SBA resource partners out there that can help small businesses get answers to their questions. We don't have all those answers, but we've worked through these programs a little bit, where we're pretty familiar with at least the basics of the Paycheck Protection Program and Economic Injury Disaster Loan, some on the state programs as well. We're trying to get up to speed on some of the other programs through the Department of Labor, IRS, and of course the whole unemployment for self-employed people and independent contractors and those types of things. So again, the SBDC as well as SCORE, the Women's Business Centers, we're all resource partners and there to answer questions. As was mentioned, Tom Willett is one of our consultants, and he's on the line here. I know he's been real busy with his clients, and Nancy Hoffman, and then in the Kanabec County area, we work through Heidi Steinmetz. So So those are some of the resources that we have. Beyond answering those questions, we're going to be assisting our clients and folks with completing some of the paperwork that's going to come later as part of some of these programs, especially we're anticipating with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, there'll be some additional paperwork that's going to be required. And then after that, helping these businesses kind of think through that whole recovery period and what's next. How do I get my customers back? What adjustments do I need to make to my overall cash flow and my cash flow planning? Those types of things. So we're just starting to get in that mode a little bit, looking forward and trying to figure out what the future holds for these small businesses. So if you're a small business owner, feel free to contact us. I can give you our phone number. Best way to reach us is 218-855-8140, and that goes to our program coordinator, and she can get your questions out to the right people. Otherwise, if you have a relationship with one of our consultants, feel free to contact them as well. So I'm open to any questions.
Any questions for Greg? All right, hearing none at the moment. Thank you, Greg, for that presentation. We appreciate that and all the good work that you and your consultants at the Small Business Development Center do. Again, Jordan here at the ECRDC, just wanting to touch base on a couple other odds and ends. I know a lot of these programs that were mentioned today, we try to put everything that we get on our social media feed. Our main outlet for that is Facebook. So feel free to like East Central Regional Development Commission, follow us on Facebook, check back often. I don't know how all the algorithms work, but you may need to check in on that page to find the latest and greatest. We occasionally find some different programs. I know, was it yesterday or the day before, the state of Minnesota's Department of Veteran Affairs announced that there is $1,000 grants for any veteran that was affected by this coronavirus pandemic. We've got a link for that and more information. We put that on our social media account for that. We've been hearing that there's some grants through First Children's Finance for childcare businesses. So we've got some links for that up there as well if you happen to be in the childcare business. But yeah, keep checking that out as well. I'll also refer you over to our website, which is ECRDC.org. That's the acronym for East Central Regional Development Commission. On there, we have a regional business assistance directory, free to download. Pretty much everybody that's presented today has their contact information on there, plus a whole bunch more. Know that there's a variety of different resources out there when it comes to funding and financing, kind of our traditional programs for gap lending. Kind of our two big gap lenders in our region is the Initiative Foundation, which covers all 5 of our counties, and the Entrepreneur Fund, which covers our northern 3, which is Pine, Kanabec, and Mille Lacs County. So that's available for that. And then the smaller gap lenders that come into play. Many of our cities and counties have loan programs. We have a small one at the East Central Regional Development Commission. So that's kind of a little bit slightly different process. That's more the traditional financing with the business plans and more in-depth, generally led by a bank or credit union on that. But not saying we couldn't take a look at some of those type situations after the SBA and state programs have all been exhausted. But we could definitely point you to the state and federal programs, SBA, as a first choice in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts that I want to talk about. Also want to mention in each of our counties, we have an economic development person, and many cities do as well. If you haven't reached out to your local economic developer, I encourage you to do so. As Greg mentioned, in Kanabec County, it's Heidi Steinmetz. Mike Wimmer is in Mille Lacs County. Nancy Hoffman is in Chisago County. And then Dave Minke, the county administrator in Pine County, is kind of running the Central Clearinghouse for Economic Development. Same with the county administrator in Isanti County, kind of runs a Central Clearinghouse for that. And again, many of the cities do. So start at City Hall, wherever you're located at. And if you're in the rural areas, give the county a call on that. but they're happy to connect with you and visit with you and point you in the right direction as well. So with that, I think I'll quit talking and maybe step back a moment and do a last cattle call for any questions. I see Twyla still on the line, Brad and Gradar as well. So it is 3:26 on mine. We'll try to wrap this up here in about 5 minutes, but last call for questions. All right, hearing none, I thank all of our participants today, all of our speakers as well for putting this together. I did my best to try to figure out how to record this, no promises, but if we do have it recorded, we'll try to get a link on our social media account. And as programs continue to be refined and move forward, we will look at doing future trainings like this as well down the road. So again, thanks to Twyla Kennedy. She is with the federal SBA out of the Twin Cities office. Brad Brzezinski, our regional rep from DEED, the state of Minnesota's Department of Employment and Economic Development. And Greg Bergman, he's the regional director and chief cook and bottle washer at the Small Business Development Center for our region. So thanks, everybody. Be safe, have a happy Easter, and don't hesitate to let us know if there's anything we can do or point you in the right direction.
Thanks, Jordan.
Bye-bye. Toodaloo.